Good thing we got stuff on the forum to go over. That's stuff we'll go over in a moment. Quick update from my end. I am now 477 pages into the Spheres of Divinity, so progress is being made. Huzzah! Um, a lot of that's just me transferring stuff that I've had homebrew. Um, but a lot of my homebrew is basically a system already, so here we are. I am nearly done converting the Barbarian class to being its own entire thing. Uh, it has a lot of the core stuff that 5e has, but without their wording, so it's entirely my own now. But it also has some of my own homebrew flourishes to it. So that's fun. All the other classes are in there as well. Just, making progress. The big thing that's taking a lot of room, I'm actually going to put some of that into a Dungeon Master's Guide. Will probably be the crafting stuff, because that's a lot of fucking pages that are not necessary in this book. About like 100 that's unnecessary, I'd say. So it's really 377. But update. A lot of progress. I think last time I was like 100 and something, so. Other than that, in terms of Unbound, many of you probably have noticed that I am now streaming the Drums of War game that I play in on Saturdays, as well as the one I run on Saturdays. So there's two Unbounds being visible now. I did not have time this week to make those tutorial videos, but I'll see about it, or last week, but I'll see about doing it this week. Yeah, no, it was there was a brief 40-minute break in between one game and the other game. Then yeah. But there we are. Hopefully should have some new stuff soon. Also this week there's gonna be a pretty big update for the Unbound system. Some of the complaints about it being, there's not really core how to play information in the book, in terms of the front end key terminology section. That's being implemented. I've been working on that on the side. Crafting's getting a major overhaul. New features are being applied to cover some of the issues that were also had, such as spellcasting being a triple fail state type of thing. So there's some feats being added in to help mitigate those issues. Yeah. That is. Other stuff might be headed from Lex. Yeah. Feedback form has been posted in the Unbound server. As they say, they've been getting some feedback. It's good stuff. Other than that, it's mostly just an update on my end. The big thing to go over would be the update on the OGL. In my opinion, that does not change anything in our regard. We're either switching to Spheres of Divinity or Unbound, depending on how things pan out. So, if people have any things they would like to bring up in that regard, feel free to do so. But that's my thoughts. The OGL does not really change much, so much as making it easier for us to, do certain content. Mm-hmm. It's true. Creative Commons, yo. Hell of a drug. Yeah, I mean, they haven't done everything Creative Commons, but, it's definitely a step.
I would also like to mention Creative Commons legally doesn't actually do anything. Everything that they say they're putting under Creative Commons is rule sets they legally can't copyright in the first place.
It's true.
So that should be said. Also, their post, while great, only applies to 5th edition. And they've already made it clear in the past that D&D 1, which is their new online visual tabletop thing, they're publishing as a new separate edition that's going to be separate than 5e. So there's
Monsters
that
are.
to keep in mind.
It's true. monsters are not actually in their listings of uh, Creative Commons content. So a lot of the things that would be useful to be Creative Commons, they didn't add. They just did things, as Lex said, that are already covered by you can't copyright game mechanics.
Yeah, the Beholder and Monster stuff was from their proposed OGL 1.2, where they would give a path forward where you could publish official content with third parties.
Yeah,
But people kind of backslapped that and were like,
it's true.
nah, not happening.
It is definitely a step in the right direction, at least. In terms of a feedback form for the DM specifically, I believe Legacy has made that. I believe it's in Firehouse. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, then I can make one. If I was supposed to do, I probably just forgot. Busy week.
Have multiple submissions for it to go over anonymously, whenever we're ready.
Yeah. In terms of being ready, once everyone has given their feedback on this particular point, then we're good to go. It's all good.
I'm looking up the new CC PDF real quick, hang on.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I actually have a small update. That doesn't, it's happening regardless of Syrik, but we've made the first payment to a web designer for an official Unbound SRD. So that is
Nice.
actually being built as we talk. So
Most excellent indeed.
hopefully by the end of the month at the latest. Or February, not this month, obviously.
Define what you mean by mission statement, because that could have multiple different contexts. Well, from a standpoint of like our objective to produce a game for people to play, I would say you know a world that people can enjoy that is shared between all, basically a massive you know game of D&D that's shared. I want people to have fun. That's my goal.
They do include monsters, but they've definitely excluded the copyrighted names.
But in terms of
The
it,
entire fundamental SRD seems to be here.
interesting. Look at that again. In terms of like a development point, the goal currently is to have a well, it was to make sure that the world was fully fleshed out, so we didn't have to really worry about making things mid phase, uh, which we are pretty freaking close to being done with that. At this point, it is to make a system that is agnostic to 5e in terms of using 5e, but Spheres of Divinity or Unbound, whichever one works, that produces the same feeling of playing a TTRPG at the table with friendos. So yeah, and I'm still not fully sure what you're meaning by it. So I feel like that that's my feeling on it. But gotcha. Yeah, I'm just trying to make a game for people to enjoy. That's my goal. Player fun is most important here. But also, keeping the same tactical play that I enjoy in my own Syrik games. So, hence the homebrew. See what Lex types. Yeah. Rip. A lot of the planes of existence, they're free use. So, like, you can't use certain things in those planes, but a lot of them are like, do what you do. So we're good for Syrik lore.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't, I really do recommend going to watch Legal Eagle's take on it.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a lot of good information in that
He also,
from a legal standpoint,
points you to a lawyer who is heavily involved in the TTRPG community, and their video is pretty good too. I don't remember their name. I only watched them the one time, but it's good stuff. Any other things to bring up to note about this particular subject? All right. I think we're good to look at that. Their form responses then, Legacy.
I'm going to be copying over some stuff into the no mic.
All right. Meanwhile, while they do their tippy tappies, hope everyone's been having a fine weekend and week in general.
Another minor thing, we have gotten started on experience packages.
Mm-hmm.
I got the first 5 done. Nerf wants to drop those for people to see. He can.
Sure. You did. They're in the PDF now, or the Google Doc, whatever, the Word document. That's what it's called. But yeah, there they are in a non-thick book format, and they're not formatted the way they are in the book, so they might look a little like, but to give you an idea.
Yeah, I just know a lot of people were. That was one of the big requests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Essentially, it's just like a listing of experience purchases you can do that provide the thing that you're looking for. Yeah. And it has the core 4 plus Bard. So, yeah.
Indeed, and this is just a first pass and can easily be expanded upon.
Mm-hmm.
They actually don't take that long to make now that we have a format set up.
It's true. Man, Word hates me, by the way. I've been, like, fighting with its page number system because it keeps putting it a little too low, and I keep trying to fix it, and it's like, whenever it adds something new, it just reverts it back to where it was before, and it's so annoying. I think I might need to add the page numbers very last in this book because it's just hates me. Yeah. Having the XP packages is definitely helpful, especially for people who just want to like hop in and just play a theme. They can just grab a package and look through it.
Yeah, and I mean these packages aren't very specifically unique. They're kind of meant to be a base generic starting point, and
yeah,
you can easily swap things out.
Yep, they're formatted in a way that you can, if you're like, no, I kind of want to go in this route. I built a little bit of a fighter, but at apprentice grade 300, I want to switch some things around. I don't want to really focus on these things. I want to go other things. You can just swap out things because it just provides you the experience cost and the suggestions, not the actual, here's what you're taking, here's what you're getting. So, it's a guideline, like pirate code.
And they're not like super optimized. Like these aren't the strongest things you could do, but they are
They're unique to that particular flavor of class.
indeed. And they're, I guess, competitive is the word.
Mm,
They're, they will do their job well.
yeah. I mean, I trust Luxo in building things because, dear God, they like to murder our faces in on Saturday.
Look, man,
Mm-hmm.
says the person who built the tassel worms.
Hey, you haven't died to him yet. You know, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Those things are brutal, though. I do think I need to adjust the experience system just a little bit in Unbound. But, I mean, it's doing its job thus far. Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, if I look at the CR of the dragon, the Tasselworms, um, even though they're considered average rank, um, they are the CR of a lethal rank, which means they're actually kind of where I want them to be. Because they're lethal for a party of apprentices. Or they can be. So, maybe I don't need to adjust XP or CR. We'll find out. Still being tested. It's working out decently well, though. I'm just waiting for you guys to fight the Hoot Hoot Bear. Which I'll have to change the name of for the guide because I cannot use Owlbear because that's copyrighted.
Now it's a bear owl.
Mm-hmm.
I was just about to say that.
The Bear Owl. The Bear Hoot.
I'm like, Wizards of the Coast even owns beholders anyway.
Hmm.
Fucking Tolkien or anyone can just go, well, show us proof that you own it. Let's see him fight that legal battle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they don't try to copyright orc or elf. The token estate would jump on them real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Balrog and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that is quite the information drop. Oh, damn. What else? Did I have anything else I needed to go over? I think it was just these. Um.
Oh, one thing Nope and I have talked about doing, which we can probably meet up this week sometime and do it
Yeah.
once the crafting update. We're going to split the PDF into three, actually, to make it more digestible. So
Mm-hmm.
that should help a lot.
Yeah. Standard Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual type of setup.
And the crafting, we put crafting in its own separate thing for now. Game Masters actually legally fine. Wizards only owns Dungeon Master,
Yeah.
technically.
Yeah. Game Master's free to use.
I think a lot of clubs would have a say in that. I don't think they want to win that one either.
Yeah, we can use Player's Handbook, no problem. We can use Game Master's Guide or Storyteller's Handbook, or anything else to that matter. And then Monster Manual we can use, or we can use the Bestiary. Yeah. Though I can see some confusion occurring if we did use Monster Manual, simply because that's what they always call the Monster Manual in D&D. But it's not something that it's fine for us to use. Looking at the feedback, I figured we'd have DMs with issues regarding regarding Unbound, because it is indeed a new system, and I figured some DMs would not be able to run said new system. It is an undertaking, to say the least. But I think with any TTRPG, it is daunting when you first look at it. When you play it, it clicks really quickly, which is why I've been suggesting people hop into some games, maybe even go into the Unbound Discord and do a looking for group, maybe even join some peoples there. Just get used to what the game might be like. If you guys are still don't really wanna, it's fine, But I would highly recommend people at least give it a shot as a player first. If you feel up for it, as a DM. And if you are wanting to go DMing, I can send you a bunch of information to help out. But I figured the preference, just because the first meeting, the responses we had, there was a preference towards spheres, about 2/3 to 1 in favor of spheres of divinity, that the DMT would be in favor of sticking with the 5e kind of format. Not to say, though, that I do not recommend people at least give it a chance by, going to the Unbound Discord and looking for group.
I mean, yeah, my only comment on that is, again, like Sage, I was honestly surprised Unbound got support it did. However, I will find a lot of people will find Unbound really isn't that different in reality, other than the classes.
Yeah.
It runs almost exactly the same, just different numbers.
Yeah,
But I'm surprised.
Yeah, if you've seen any of the streams, it runs very similar to D&D. There's just a few mechanics that are different. DR is much more common in Unbound, and that everyone probably has it. And there's small things like your attack rolls are technically a skill check and things of that nature. It's just small tweaks that are going to be familiar for you if you played any form of D&D, especially if you've played any of the older editions of D&D, like 3.5 or Pathfinder. So yeah. As for the book being difficult to get into, it's fair. It is a blocky fucking chunk. As mentioned, we're looking to split it into more digestible pieces. And I'm working on adding some of the key stuff that you would find in any TTRPG. Just as an introduction page that says, here's what a TTRPG is, here's how you play the game, here's how you do certain things, here's what dice are, here's what these things are, and so on and so forth. Key terminology that will be found throughout the book. Basically things that you expect to have in a book.
Did I miss a link to that book somewhere?
I'll drop it. Here, have a book.
This is currently the raw playtest book. Hence why it's so big.
Yeah. It is a chunky book. There's a decent amount of that is crafting, so when we do split up the book, it's going to be much more digestible.
I mean, yeah, there's probably going to be over 200 pages removed when we separate crafting.
Yeah, no, your point is definitely valid, though, in that switching to Unbound will require training the DM team for Unbound. It is an undertaking that.
Actually, if it helps, I have something I can also finish up this week. I have a one shot that is basically done, and I was getting ready to make a pre-made map tools, tokens, everything,
Mhm.
and just they can run. And it includes a few different encounters, and it is around the equivalent of level 4 or 5 in the game. If it was a D&D level equivalent, I can finish up that map tools file with pre-made characters based on experience packages
Mhm.
we have, and I can just drop that and to make it easier for a DM to be like, all right, here it is. Something they can run to test it without having to actually build anything.
Mhm. I would also recommend maybe like 2 more of those 1-shot or 2-shot booklets and ventures. I can work on some as well, just so there is some variability, some variety. So if DMs do pick them up, they can choose some. So basically,
Here we are.
if DMs are here and running games, I don't feel like players want to really play the same 1-shot 50 times. Having some variance there would be helpful to help train DMs on. It is definitely a thing that would need to be looked into, showing the DM team how to run the game. But as I said, TTRPGs, they are easy to get into if you just hop in and play. Reading the book is a big chunk of, oh god, that's a lot of text. So, hence why I'm suggesting you guys, at the very least, I'd appreciate it if you look into joining. If you don't want to, no worries. It is an entirely new game system, but it would be appreciated. In terms of the classless system, I can see the point. It is definitely valid in that looking at a class system, it's very obvious what's strong and what's not strong. Classless system, you can combine 4 different classes into one build essentially because you're just buying talents and features and whatnot. So it's gonna be harder to tell in that regard. But it also has a lot of very clear defining features of you look at someone's sheet, oh look, they have these talents, I know how they play. Because you'll read something like they have rage, they have fast movement, they have, power attack, and they might have something like an armor feat that lets them raise up a temporary HP shield like False Life is. So, they're going to be like a barbarian. That's going to be very clear and obvious what they are. But it is definitely something that we would need to get used to if we do use it, because it is a different system. It's clear cut in its own way, but you need to know how to read that, essentially, is what I'm getting at. So, yeah, no, it's not as clear cut as classes, that's for sure.
Pretty sure we've already answered the last.
Yeah. I'm just going down
One,
the list of things before I read
two.
the other legacy post-its.
Yeah, I'm talking about the last one. I'm pretty sure we've already answered the loose party restrictions, the micro campaign thing before telling people it's 4 to 6.
No, we have definitely answered. The party
Yeah,
is loose. There's you can go from 4 players, 5 players, 6 players, any sorts like that.
and we've already brought up the point for the campaigns because we've told people if you're gonna do one shots, do them sparingly because one shots are how you get burnout.
Yep.
Really quickly. There have been several people that have suffered from burnout because of that.
Yep. This is why we're heavily encouraging players, if they like their group, to stick with it and just keep running their campaign, because it is their campaign that's in a shared world. It might have not as many adventures as a proper campaign. You might continue on elsewhere, but yeah. As for your response, Zach, Yeah, no, spellcasting is definitely daunting. As I mentioned last time, I didn't even want to touch it when I first looked at Unbound. Um, so it's definitely daunting. We have added some things that will help mitigate your issues with the check being applied and whatnot, as which also had those issues.
I would also like to point out the spellcaster requiring a check. I 100% did it. Uh, at first read, it's like, oh, my spell can fail, which is a big depart from traditional D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Most systems don't do that. For people who that's like a make or break it of, well, I'm just not going to play spellcaster, I recommend trying it once. There's a majority of people who do dislike that, who have then tried it, realize it's not as much of an issue. But even then, if you don't, there are actually a multitude of air quote spell like abilities that are as strong, if maybe in slightly different ways, where you can play a magic character without spells per se.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's something to keep in mind too.
Basically, it looks very daunting. It looks like something you don't want to touch. When you do use it, you might find that it's actually really fucking nice, as I found. Um, Maybe you won't. I know some people are just like, I'm not touching that. Period. Um, but as I said, it's something like appreciate if you guys would look at it. If you don't, no worries. I understand. It is a massive system to look through. But I would recommend going to the Unbound Discord and just doing a looking for group, especially if you have free time and you want to play a game, because games are fun. Continuing on to the third point, I believe is where we're at. I would say that is sort of the case. Switching to PF2E would be the same difficulty as switching to Unbound, in my opinion. They're both systems that are very similar in many ways, but they all both have their own unique changes. So, like, I've ran games for Pathfinder Second Edition. I've ran games for 5e. I've ran games for Pathfinder First Edition. I've ran games for Unbound, 3.5, even some AD&D and some non-D&D related systems. And anything that is based upon the D20 system, especially if it's closer to 5e, will be easiest to switch to. Anything that is adjacent to 5e, though, like Pathfinder 2nd Edition or Unbound, will be easy to switch to as well. I think PF2e might be easier for players to switch to, simply because it has the class system, and it has that same familiarity. But when you look at the mechanics of Pathfinder 2nd Edition and Unbound, a lot of the core systems for combat, like you have actions, you have things of this nature, they're pretty fucking similar. But I have not DM'd a heavy amount of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, so maybe it's easier to jump into for DMs. I also really like game system and game design, so when I get into a game, I kind of delve deep. So maybe I'm just, weird like that. I don't fucking know. But in my opinion, I think both are pretty easy to jump into.
Having looked at 1 and 2, I think 2 is easier for me personally.
Oh yeah, definitely. 2 is definitely easier to jump into than First Edition.
One thing that I've seen mentioned a lot, and we talked about it last week, and I see it's mentioned here, is disparity between player power. And the honest truth is, there's more disparity between classes and player power in 5e than Unbound. And I mainly mean that if you look at 5e, 30, 3.5, Pathfinder, even Pathfinder 2, Pathfinder 2 not as much. They held back on it. I mean, what's the strongest class in 5e? Cleric or wizard, kinda. Especially compared to some of the martial inclined.
It just depends on what you're really building. Ranges can be
Well,
fucking
yeah,
devastating. Same with paladins and rogues, and Really, every class has got their own unique strengths. 5e's weird.
Yes, but Wizards is known for making
Yeah.
spellcasters
Yeah.
very potent.
Wizards and clerics are really potent.
That's always been a problem since 3rd edition, really.
Mm-hmm.
Even 2nd edition. I feel like people will find that's actually not the case in our system. As much, anyway. So I know that's the worry of, classless, somebody could make a bad build. But
I feel like a
we,
bad build will be hard to actually make in Unbound.
yeah, you would have to go out of your way and try to make a bad build, which at that point, you're trying to make a bad build, so.
Mm-hmm.
eh,
Plus, we have retraining rules. If you do make a mistake and you're like, I don't really feel like this feat's doing anything for me. So, regarding the last point of it being a playtest, well, it is a playtest, and that is definitely something that is a concern for Living World. And it, my opinion, is one of the bigger concerns for Unbound being used here. The game itself is 100% playable. The only issue here would be that being a playtest, if an update pops out, we will have to decide if we're having everyone switch to that or if we're going to do, here's our addition, we're using this until the next phase. Unless there's something that's like, this fixes an issue that needs to be fixed now. So that would be the only thing we would need to look at for Unbound, because being a playtest, that is a real concern. There will be updates on like a bi-weekly basis or maybe even a monthly basis if things start getting really fine-tuned.
and for the most part, we're at the point where the updates are more additions of new abilities at this point.
Yeah.
This big crafting update is the only big overhaul we have planned. Other than that, we're just planning to add more things. Like magic is going to get some more abilities and some more options, but we're not really removing or changing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there's a couple that note found the other day. We actually never put the write up for the rule of fortification in the book.
Mm-hmm.
That will be added to the book, but that's not actually a rule change. It just got missed and then got put in the PDF for
Yep.
whatever reason. Stuff like that. The rules, I would say, are 99% complete. It's just.
It is a fully playable system at this point in time. And the thing I would say that would limit it being playable would be the monster manual, but that is something that we have, and we have a monster creator for it. And I've already made many monsters using it, so that would be the same case with Spheres of Divinity, though we have a lot more monsters made for Spheres than we would for Unbound. Because, we've been doing that since the old days, so.
But one of the benefits of Unbound, most of your 5e monsters, you can actually just convert pretty easily.
I mean, you can convert any monster from any D&D edition to Spheres or Unbound, which is what I've been doing. So, because you just like look at what they can do and be like, oop, oop, oop.
And from my point of view, you don't even have to use the builder technically. I mean, yeah, as a guide, but like, they have these abilities. Just give them those abilities for the most part. They can. The system was made to allow that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the builder helps with key statistics, so you stay in a general power range for the particular level play you're looking for. But other than that, it's not fully necessary. You can just, pop things like you would with the 5e builder we have. But playtesting Unbound is definitely a thing to keep in mind for Living World, because there will be updates, though they, as Lex said, they're going to be updates of a additional content variety going forward for the most part. There might be something we missed, or there might be something that like, oh, I didn't look at that in a while. We need to fix that.
Yeah, or the occasional number tweak.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, someone's like, hey, this is really broken. We might tweak the numbers.
Yeah.
So.
But, Unbound itself is fully playable. It's just the PDF is a work in progress. So it is a thing.
There's one last comment I'll make,
mm-hmm.
and then that is pretty much all. Then I have Duke brought up asking people to learn the new system. I know it seems that way, but the reality is, anyone who's already been running for Syrik knows 95% of the rules Unbound has. All the rules there are, other than Magic. I will say Magic is an exception. But most of
The
the
conclusions on where we go from here now that we've gotten some feedback and the OGL seems to have settled down is a no, Mike.
Oh, I'm still going through the feedback. I only went through the first one.
but my point is tactical battle and like running the game. Most of the rules that are in 5e are rules that nerf homebrewed for Syrik for the most part anyway, with a few minor exceptions. I think Magic being the main one. Nerf, you might know a couple other rules that or outliers that I'm not thinking of.
And there's some features that we don't have in 5e. Like fortification is not really a thing in 5th edition, though I have introduced it in some of my creatures. So there's like homebrew that I've added for my own home games, but there's very small things that are like, I don't know what that is. But you know, a lot of the features that are inbound are things that I've added to homebrew of my own. So, and which was why I was like, we can use it, and it won't be too much of an issue because a lot of the homebrew is some things I already like and already use. I I do think Spheres is going to be the easiest transition for the DM team because we don't have to train people. It's just going to be the longest to actually get things off, and basically we're going to be pushing back the launch date for several months. In terms of the community, I think as a whole, I think the community would really enjoy Unbound if they give it a chance. I don't know about the DM team. I feel like you guys would, but you know, what do I fucking say? You guys like your own very particular systems. You might not like it. You might like it. You might get really into it. You might be like, I'm never touching this again. I don't really know. But from my experience with Unbound, it's pretty fun.
Got a comment on this, actually give me a moment to type it up.
All right, I'm just going to scroll down and see what the new post-its are. Yeah, no, vanilla magic items in 5e are pretty but we have magic crafting system in Spheres, so yeah, and that makes things pretty spicy for magic users and martial users. The systems in the crafting overhaul should be adding some extra stuff for Unbound as well, so we should be covered there.
If it matters, just a bit of a shout out to the crafting. I did the math on Friday, and one of our subcategories of materials for Unbound actually has more materials than Pathfinder and 5e combined. Core, not homebrew, obviously.
Yeah.
So, if you are a crafter, or you know people who like crafting, yeah, we have that in spades.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
We might have went and go overboard.
You 100% went overboard. One of the things I've been telling you for the longest time is that there's many things in your book that could be in a splat book.
They probably will be, but hey.
Yeah. I mean, once you have it, you have it, and you can just put it in a splat book when you go to publish, but, like, there's a lot of things that, if I were making the book, I'd be like, that doesn't need to be there right now. That can be in the splat book. Most of it's just, like, extra content, like, here's a few talents. The many materials that you've been working on, I would only add a few core ones. Certain things of a crazier nature, like expanded optional rules, I put those in a splat book as well. But you know, overall, I think it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if you have inspiration, you know what you want to work on it. You don't want to lose that idea. So let's see here, posty. Yeah, no, magic system. Any magic system is going to be undertaking to learn. The only thing that you really need to learn with Unbound's magic system is that two things. One, there is the casting thing where you have to make a check to actually cast the spell, and then there's the check to see if the spell lands. So that is a change from like 5e and whatnot. Though there have been some talents added to help mitigate that particular concern. The other one being that your spells, since it is a magic crafting system, we will have some pre-mates that you don't have to worry about this, but spells can choose to be attack based or save based when you make them, and that's not really something that you like really deal with in 5e. It's either this is what it is or this is what it isn't. But the prefabricated spells will cover that issue, and you can just use those and do what you do. It'll be basically like casting 5e, except for you have to make a check to see if it goes off. That's like, other than that, since you're only really seeing the spellcrafting system, it's very daunting. Again, one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not touching this. Once the prefabricated spells are in there, you're gonna look at it and be like, this is just 5e, with like a few extra things added on that basically are like, here's a class feature of how you cast your spells. So, yeah. But magic is definitely an undertaking. Next on the list of opinions, while Legacy's doing their tippy tappies. Yeah, no, I feel you there. Unbound is definitely interesting. Do some work. Spheres is more viable, but we'll have a longer time before we can actually run things. Yeah. So, yep, set pack time. You have the same idea there as I do with spheres. Yeah, I figured time to learn might be an issue for many of the DM team, which is why I'm suggesting if you are interested in Unbound, or even if you are not really interested, but you're still interested in the community here, perhaps give it a try as a player first and foremost, and see how it feels. That's really the best way to learn a system, and if people can get into it as a player, then I'm sure they'll be like, okay, I can do this as a DM. Because, everyone here who is a DM tag has gone through training in some form or fashion, so they should have knowledge of how to run games. So. And we have the cheat sheet, if you ever get a question. And like with every TTRPG, you do not need to know the book from cover to cover. That's insane. I don't know the book from cover to cover in any system I've ever ran.
I'm building the system, and I don't know it from cover to cover.
It's true. Looking things up is very important, which is why the SRD database is being built. Because it will definitely help on just like Googling, hey, what does this do? Next up in the questionnaire.
Were we supposed to read the 5e book? Because I don't think I've ever opened it.
I've opened it a few times. I mostly just use like Google searches for content I need. I don't really use the book.
I just opened 5e tools and went to classes and said, fuck it, let's go.
Yeah, I use D&D Beyond. I still use D&D Beyond because I have all the content there. I don't have my subscription anymore, though. But,
You got it until it runs out.
Yeah, well, I still have my books. I just don't have the ability to share my content with people anymore come April. Because I had a year subscription. Do we need to change the system legally? Legally, no. Especially since they're going, at least for 5e, I don't know about 1 D&D, but 5e, we do not need to change the system because, hey, look, they're not going to, claim we are forced to switch to their 1.2 OGL and, give them ownership of Syrik. So we don't need to do that. Do I want to? Yes, I would like to change, because fuck the stunt they pulled. Yeah. Before, though, there was definitely concern that was valid in terms of if you're going to stick with the system and they tried forcing things on you, they might have been able to do so legally, depending on how they wibbly wobbled. And I didn't really want to be like getting a cease and desist letter being like, you can't run your Discord server anymore. So all the content that we've been working on. But now that's not really a concern. Might be in the future in terms of certain things, but those things can be cut out. It'd be small content things, not like the entire, living world. The Unbound system. Oh, go ahead.
Is there any kind of access control on the wiki?
What do you mean?
Like, can you restrict who can see what?
For the one that's being built for Unbound, or for?
Either. I'm really asking about the wiki software more than the.
Something I want to note right now is that independent of whatever system we ultimately conclude with, we're unlikely to launch for a significant period of time whether we go with Unbound or Spheres.
That I disagree with. Because we're really close to launching.
Go ahead and finish your statement. I've got a ton of stuff after that, sorry.
But, yeah, we can get into that in a bit. Go ahead, Lex.
Since I'm building or planning to get an SRD built right now, any wiki repository can block people out of it. It's actually quite easy to do. You can block people from a website. It's also easy to get around. The main way is, hey, they can block an IP. Hey, you just use a VPN and you get around it. But that's also not foolproof. Stuff like 5e with their D&D Beyond and whatnot, which require you to log in, they can duke an account at any time. So, same with Word Anvil. Word Anvil, for those of you who have worked to the back end, actually have you can make certain pages private, and only if you get invited or given a code, you can go into. And that's actually a pretty easy feature to implement on any wiki or website. So.
Yep. Yeah, so if we want some hidden content on the World Anvil wiki that we have for Syrik, we could do so. Or if Lex wanted to do some things, they could do so.
Yeah, I was just thinking it might be prudent, because the only way anybody's ever really going to get sued is from getting Googled by WotC lawyers.
Yeah. Fortunately, though, switching to Spheres, we should be fine. Switching to Unbound, we should be fine. Yeah. The big thing that's copyrighted is lore, and that's not really an issue, so. While you continue your tippy-tappies, which I see you doing right now, is the Unbound system fully finished? No. It's playable. It is finished to a point where I consider it in beta, though Lex is more like it's technically alpha, but it's really close to beta, and I'm like, it's kind of beta, though. Like, if a system's fully playable, it's beta in my mind.
We're at the point where technically other systems would have kickstarted and be looking to publish by now.
Yes.
We're just dragging our feet because I'm a madman and I keep making more content.
Yeah. Bit of a perfectionist, I feel.
Not a perfectionist, I just keep coming up with ideas. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this. Oh, I'm going to make this. Also, money. Money is the thing. It costs money to make money. And
yeah, you're going to want to have the book be presentable when you put it on World Anvil so you can have a nice video to show it off.
I mean, just for context, last time we talked, we brought up an editor. We've been getting quotes for that. A professional editor to edit a PDF for a tabletop, the price will range from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on the level of editing you want. So, takes money to make money. Which is why we're going for the SRD first.
Is there any point in lore we have to change for the Spheres of Divinity? No. Same answer for Unbound. General comments on Unbound after reading through the PDF provided for about an hour and a half or so.
Since it's a big chunk of text, I've stuck my thoughts at the bottom of no mic for readability.
All right, all right. Well, we'll get to that in a moment as we continue down the route. The system does have a same format, a design format as Pathfinder First Edition, so that is totally fair. It was originally based off of First Edition Pathfinder, so there is that. But it has been going further and further away and making it a bit more of its own unique system, and adding some elements from 5e and Pathfinder Second Edition to make it a bit more palatable. But no, it definitely has some old school vibes, which is weird that Pathfinder is considered old school at this time. But yeah.
And that was the architecture I was referencing, the disparity of power thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it may seem like it, but as the more and more updates we make, the disparity of power goes smaller and smaller. I mean, for those of you, I don't know if anyone here actually tuned into the stream, Sage's character could probably be considered one of the more powerful ones in the Saturday group, just because he went this crazy magic build. And the weakest character is probably the rogue crossbowman. And by weak, I mean
Fucking will
not weak
kill
at
you.
all. Yeah, he's amazing, but I can see a viewpoint where people would be like, "Oh, he's weak. He's yeah." Yeah. But hey, I mean that's one of those you don't really see it until you actually play it. So
Yeah.
I can see that completely.
Yeah, I feel like the latter half of this is kind of covered already by Lex, but it was also covered by my previous answer. Um, Essentially, it is definitely an undertaking. Just feel like it. Consider going to Unbound and doing a looking for group as a player to test the waters out. I think it can work for Living World, but it is something that we will need to look into. Is a Living World on a whole suggestion? Not really sure what some of these traits mean. Like the participants are the audience, not viewers. Pretty sure that's kind of the case in the in general, that your players are, actually no, that the players are people who are actively changing things. They're not even audience. They're not viewers. They're not audience. They are protagonists. Yeah, I'm not really sure where you're getting with this one. If we wanted to do a different living world with that particular theme, we could. I feel like a lot of people here are for the continuous MMO experience of a living world. I'm not really sure the full context of this suggestion though, so maybe I'm just not reading it properly.
The last one might be in context to the previous one, previous living world, not with how that was handled.
That's fair.
At least is the way I see it anyway, as we do have a lot of people that were in that one.
Mm-hmm.
I could also see that as a stream thing, like a stream issue.
Yeah.
For some people, that one's a broad term statement.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like they've played in a few games where they felt like they were the audience and not the people playing.
Yeah.
It's a weird statement.
Mm-hmm. I will say, with the various options we have, because we have part-time DMs, the game masters, all that, the pickup style sessions, we're just like, I want to run a random one shot, I want to be able to run a game at this point in time. That's a thing we already have in play. Um, in terms of loose party restrictions, we already mentioned on this, but your party size is not, you have to have players. It is a range of player options. Little to no continuity between campaigns that could exist. One campaign within Bruges, for example, could very well be not even tied at all to the main Bruges arc that we're working on for a phase. It could just be its own thing. The players could be doing their own thing. They might even fuck off and go to a different area. It really just depends on what the DM and the players are doing in their area. The DM might tie it to
My
the
primary
campaign.
thought on your feedback is that the living world currently hasn't even been fully defined outside of a few key things like party size, expectations of game masters and game frequency, and so on. So actual living world philosophy and design is still pretty open to define, but also should be something we hold off on until we conclude on picking a system because that'll impact it pretty heavily.
So regarding that, I think this is kind of an issue with not having things written down. The design philosophy of the living world has never really changed. Our direction has always been the same. We just don't have it written anywhere. The idea has always been to run these DM focused groups and parties, or not like DM focused, but group focused missions that happen to share a world, based upon the RPG that we're choosing. So regardless if we choose spheres or Unbound or whatnot, the philosophy is going to remain the same. That's not something that really needs to, like, unless someone's got like some crazy ideas. I don't think that this is something that's changing anytime soon. Though I do think having it written down would be helpful because we have been getting a lot of questions on what is our philosophy with the living world, and in my mind it's always been clear, but in my mind I running things here, so kind of I already know what we're doing, and I feel like those who are new, it would be helpful to have it written down. But we've talked about this particular subject multiple times throughout multiple meetings, and though it might not have been clear cut, like this is our philosophy, it was essentially what we were talking about is our philosophy as a living world. Having a flat progression system so that anyone can play with anyone, an easy to learn and run system that is optimized for VTT. Unless you're running something that is very simplistic in design, that's mostly just a narrative-focused RPG, which would be an entirely different living world for clarity. Having something that is easy to learn and run and that is just a flat progression system, that's not 5e, that's not Spheres, that's not Unbound. That would be an entirely different living world. That would be entirely different discussion, which, based upon the community's feedback form for what systems they're interested in, we only had a few people who were talking about outside game systems, and those were also somewhat crunchy, like Cyberpunk. So I'm open to like running at multiple living worlds, but that would be a different living world entirely. Like out of all the work
Central
we would be,
philosophy is there, yet it's the static groups with a central setting. My wording there was poor, but what I mean is that a lot of the design philosophy for the living world interactions parts haven't been concluded, only the games and the parties. I'll put that on the list of stuff to collate since it's one of those core community things we should have easily referenceable even as we add to it.
Well, the intention for the how the different games and whatnot impact one another, that would just be, mission meetings we'd have. We'd go over what happens, what might be impacted from this, and so on and so forth. It's not really a way to have the number of games we have a clear, defined, this is how they impact, or a system built for that. We will have, forums or like meetings to discuss what happens, but it's not something that can just be like, if you do this, then this happens. We can't build a system because D&D is so flexible that anything can really happen that we cannot prepare for everything. And that's something we just kind of have to accept as an organization, is that it is not worth the time and effort to build the system, essentially. And that's something I've learned through my many, many classes in game design. While it'd be nice to have, not worth it. If someone wants to work on something of that nature, feel free. I'd appreciate it. I don't think it's worth the time or effort. Because that is a huge undertaking. And if I'm misunderstanding, feel free to speak up and whatnot. Let me go check to see what the new post-its are saying. Gotcha, Ryan. Gotcha. Yeah, no. The essentially the idea for this living world, you have your normal D&D game. Everyone has a DM. They group up. They run their campaign. If they like their DM, they stick with their DM, and their campaign continues as is. Alternatively, they can just hop into a one-shot game and run that way. And their stories might progress there. There might be new characters and all that good stuff. Outside of games, there will be role-playing channels here that they can interact with one another through text-based RP. And they might even gather from information for their game through text-based RP, depending on what RP events we might run, which will be run by, staff. But overall, think of the overall theming of it as a D&D game that just happens to be connected to other D&D games. Though I would say not so casually. It's going to be, we'll have more connections because, you can talk to a lot of different players. Yeah. Yep, and yeah, I mean, the 3 points pretty much the fleshing out of it. Again, I think the effort to define all the different options that can be interactable is a lot of effort, and it'll be easier just to have meetings to go over what might be impacted from the various groups that might happen, or having a form that we can read off if DMs can't make a session for any major things. That said, having some key points of this will impact something will be helpful. So if your players go to the Abyss and open a gateway in the middle of the city of Karstein, then we should have something that should be notable about that. Any huge world-altering events, we should have things noted down. Once we have the system nailed down, depends on if we're looking at spheres, which will take me a few months to finish, or Unbound, which will take the team some time to learn and understand. In terms of the content we need to finish to get launched, I haven't looked at the I forgot the name of the site. Our to-do list, our Trello board. It's not too large in terms of how much we have to go through. Maybe about a month or a bit more, depending on how focused we are of content to actually add. Yeah, I would say a minimum of a few months though, just because even if we do Unbound, we're going to have to make sure the team understands how to use it, and they might not have the availability to train at this point in time. So, and we might need to train entirely new DMs, because if we do switch Unbound, we might lose DMs, and I mean we most likely will. But for Spheres, it will be months because the system is in progress. Though, I'm, 400 something pages into it, so there's that. Yeah, we're almost to that part, legacy. I'm just making sure I'm going through each and everything so I hit everyone's points. Final submission is feedback on the current Syrik props framework. Lack of GM macros such as mass visibility editing. I'm not sure what you mean by mass visibility editing. If you guys have some macros you want added in, just send them my way and I'll put them into the framework. If it's for Unbound, if there's like some DM specific ones that are not like system specific, then again, feel free to send them my way and I can get them to the framework. Auto relayering of dead tokens to the object layer. That is an issue for people. I can remove it if it is the case. I find it easiest so I don't have people walking over tokens that are dead. But I can remove it. People want me to. In my games, I'll keep it in there. But in the base one, I'll have like an option of object or not object dead. Coloring of the states tab that leads to very slow saves. Not sure what you mean by slow saves, but I'm also on a beast computer, so.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Ryan about this last week, Sage. Apparently, one of the things that make Mac2's files save slow, or even like stutter and fail to save for a moment, is the number of states you have available.
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh.
Removing some of them drops it from like a minute save to like 5-second save, so it's quite impactful.
Well, fortunately, Unbound doesn't have a lot of states, and for Syrik 5e, I can get rid of a lot of these spell ones that aren't necessary. I just like them; they're pretty. Yeah. No, that's. I'm lazy sometimes when I make my macros. It's an easy addition though, so if people want, I can add in the abort functions so they don't give you an error. Yeah, now the thing that is an easy fix, I just need to pop it in for the termination at 0. I feel for tooltips, I can look into adding those. I don't think they're really necessary because I feel like damage, the macro called damage is going to be very clear cut what it does. Macro called basic attack creation macro, very clear cut what it does. Some might not be the case, and I can add some like AoE spell manager. That one's going to be like, what does this do? Yeah, I can see tooltips being used in some cases, but I can add them for everything if need be. Not really an issue. Macro buttons are not of the standardized size, leading to cluttering. I have standardized them in the most recent update. Like resource checks. Not sure what you mean by that. Lack of automated reaction marker cancellations at the end of turn. It's not really required to have that. That's just an ease system. I can build it into the framework. Won't be too difficult. Big issue there is that to do that, I would have to make macros that when you do make an attack, you'll have to toggle it if it is a reactionary attack, which will then toggle to see if you've used a reaction, which will then reduce your pool, getting the state, and the end of your turn. The next turn button will mark you being free of your reaction and whatnot. So, or beginning of turn would give you your reactions back. So, it's a lot of coding that I feel is unnecessary for automation. When it literally just takes like 2 clicks to add and remove the reaction. But it can be done. It's just one of those things where I'm like, it's a lot of effort for little gain. Lack of color coding. What frameworks?
Anyone wants to contribute to it, is there a way for them to submit code snippets?
Yeah, they can just, there's the macro discussion channel in here. You can also just DM me any code you want to add to the framework. I keep an eye on a lot of the different channels in the Discord, so. Even like Humber stuff.
Yeah. I would also like to point out one thing on the framework side of things. Something note that I have gone back and forth with a lot in the past, even before the living worlds became a thing, is there is a certain point of automation in a framework where it actually becomes detrimental, which is something we've discovered and rediscovered and gone back and forth about a lot because, especially with newer players, if you get there's a certain level of accidentally clicking something, or also applying a state, and if an auto gives you a bonus, but you don't realize it, and there are situations where the visualization of a bonus can get removed, but the bonus is still stored as being active. And basically, the more you automate it, the more likely it is for a glitch to happen where things aren't correct, and
Mhm.
it's harder to fix. So
Yeah,
that is something to keep in mind with automation.
it's true. I'm gonna scroll down in a moment to read the 7 new messages. In terms of lack of color coding, I've just looked at my framework and I'm like, yeah, that's fair. I can color code things. If you have like a particular color code you want me to add, I can pop it in there. I probably would just keep things like if it's healthy, I'll probably do some form of like pink or red. If it's like a spell, I'll probably do purple. If it's martial, I'll probably do orange. You know, key colors that are very specific what they are. Um, but yeah, that's fair. I don't have color coding. Um, Lack of auto add to initiative. That is a holdover from the initiative macro where people wanted to add flavor text when they click it, and adding the auto add to initiative removed that ability where they couldn't add their own flavor text. Um, I could have a player initiative macro that is campaign only, where it automatically adds them to initiative and automatically rolls for them and automatically sets them initiative and sorts the initiative. But that functionality where people want to have their own flavor text when they roll initiative would be removed because they couldn't make their own flavor text.
I can attest to that in my games where people have changed the text to be unhinged shit
Mm-hmm.
every week.
Yep.
And it turns out to be fucking hilarious. For like, I can understand the need to auto add and auto sort it, because it does help a lot. But
Yes.
at the same time, it's just like 2 clicks and it's
Yeah.
fine.
This is why I have the add PCs to initiative and the add NPCs to initiative buttons on the campaign frame. Because you can just click add PCs. Your players can then roll initiative. They'll set their initiative. And then when you roll your monsters' initiatives through the DM initiative, that one will automatically add them, roll for them, and sort everything in the initiative window. So you always do players first and then your monsters. If you do that, then it's essentially the same result of things are set up. It's one additional click. Which you'd have to do before your players roll. So if they get a little jumpy on that, it might be an issue. But yeah, it can be done. It's just players like making flavor text. I know this because I've done it, where I've had a random table of quotes that my character might say, and it will like give me a random number between 1 and 12, and it'll output that quote for my initiative whenever I roll. So, I'm lazy. I find lists easier to make. So, if you want to optimize my code, feel free. Yeah, that's the only reason I use lists over radio or check. There's a reason for that. You can use PC macros for your monsters, no problem. It is much, much quicker to make monsters with mob macros, and everything that you're going to be really using for your mobs, such as the AoE spell manager, the basic mob damage, mob heal. You could use the player version. It's just going to reference things that aren't actually referenced, so it will damage them. It's just going to output, like something is wrong. It still damaged them though. But it's much easier to make tokens with mob macros instead. So that's the whole reason I have that separated. And so I have the mob damage macro automatically bringing them to 0, and that marks them as dead instead of being they're dying. Because mobs generally die. Though I have the toggle for if you want them to mark them unconscious, you can mark it as non-lethal and it'll mark them as unconscious instead of dead. There is definitely a reason for it, for the mob versus PC. Philosophy stuff. feel like that's more of a statement, and I'm like, yes. I'm not really sure what else to say. I've heard your philosophy stuff on that, though. I'm like, yeah, framework should help the overall experience. Yep. All right. Conclusions from this week's meeting and my recommendations. First and foremost, we need to distinctly understand where we stand. Oh, I was going to read the messages first. Here we go. Yeah, probably read that. Here we go. Here's my new stuff. Yeah, no, that's why we're not releasing things unfinished. We want things to be fully runnable. It will lead to backlog. It will lead to bad design decisions. It will lead to unoptimized features. It will lead to people having burnout. Yeah, some parts will be unfinished, but these parts will be essentially like, different regions that will be unlocked as players progress, which will be like new phases and whatnot. Or, maybe their campaign just continues on to a different region, but it won't be like a specialized focused region. So, Yep. Yeah, that's just an issue with the themes, the black background, black lettering. If you use a black theme, it does not actually change your text color, and that's horribly inefficient on their end. I wish they fixed it. So I've been having to go through all my macros and changing their default colors, and it's really freaking annoying. Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, with the number of alternative themes they've added, it's hard to make a covered macro set that works for everyone.
Yep. Let's see here. First and foremost, distinctive terms of 5e. Are we capable of staying in the state now that the OGL remains? I mean, technically we could stay on as we are and just continue running 5e. I do not wish to do so, which is why I'm working on Spheres of Divinity. I'll be doing so regardless. But also I do not trust them not to try something in the future. So, certain things are viable for us, but they have lost their trust. And from that, they have lost my interest in using base 5e as much as I can. Though I never really used base 5e for the first point, so. I think if we're going to launch, we're going to want to launch with all of our core rules nailed down to a point where key features do not change. Small features can change, but key features should not. So switching from 5e to spheres, there's going to be some transitions that oh, my entire race has been updated, as an example. Or this entire class, hey, look, I'm a barbarian, but I suddenly have these new features, and this feature is now different. So, yeah. If we're going to transition, best to do it pre-launch, so it's just clean slate and everyone's used to what we're working with. We could do so. I don't recommend doing it. Let's see here. What we need to do to be distinct, unlinked, already in progress. Spheres of Divinity being worked on. Yep. Unbound is also a thing that is being worked on as an option. No one's stepped forward to be like, I want to help you with Spheres of Divinity, so it's pretty much just whenever I'm done. And as for Unbound, I'm working on that too, and there's updates coming out. In terms of what OGL will use for spheres, I'm definitely looking at Orc. I like the idea that they're going to a non-profit to get it set up instead of doing what Wizards Scope was trying to do, and be like getting a bunch of lawyers and be like, let's do the thing that's going to fuck over players. I also know that Paizo is definitely using this opportunity to just milk all the goodwill that they can, as a company would and is doing. But fuck ever. If it's good for the community, I'm fucking happy. So whatever OGL I apply to it, whether it's OGL or orc or just setting it out, it's fine. Don't worry about it. That's for me to worry about. Not really a community thing to look into, unless you guys are lawyers and know how to do some stuff, and I can talk with you in that regard. Playtesting for Unbound should continue. I highly recommend people, community, and the DM team just hop into the Unbound Discord and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for games." Or
yeah. With that being said, kind of on the same page as Derp, it's mainly me and Derp working on things at this point on Unbound team. Mainly me, but Derp is working on some more user side stuff. But as for one shots, as I mentioned before, I'm going to get the one shot ready to go. And I'll personally run a few this week if I get it done in time. I mean, again, that all depends. I do only have so much time in a day.
Yeah.
But if anyone want any GMs or staff members here wish to play in it and then get handed to run it, just message me. Or if you want to run it
I'll be
without
able to
playing
help
it,
with spheres by converting the central document if you get it upload to GM Binder or some online collab system. But at the moment I'll focus on getting the system independent stuff established, like getting the actual living world features down on a document somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the system reference document is helpful. A lot of the stuff that's in it I'm already covered for. That's mostly for the living world community to just have an easy reference document. But it is helpful. As for a poll, a DM specific poll, seems to be the case that is not currently out. So for this week after my game, I'll probably build that, send it out. So expect that to be in DM General, Council General. So people can fill out the form and give interest, and it will be a how do you feel about Spheres versus Unbound. I think it was pretty clear from the both the original one, which was just DMs who were looking at it, and the entire community, that Pathfinder 2nd Edition was not really being looked at. Like, it had one vote for the DM, and then it had, like, I think 12 or 14 votes out of, like, the 100 and something for the community, so I don't think Pathfinder 2nd Edition is even on running up for
How many DM votes came in total?
I do not know that, because I do not have it marked as are you DM or are you not. So I'll be making a new poll for that. But from the initial responses, which there was 14, that was released before I posted the information to the community. So there was at least 14 DMs who responded. And from those, there's, I believe, just the one who was interested in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And then there was, like, I think 7, 8 for Spheres, and then there was the remaining for Unbound. Yeah. Any which ways, that's what I have on that information. Let's see here. To note right now is that independent of whatever systems with likely launch for a second period of time. Yeah, we already discussed that. Yep, yeah, we already discussed that. Okay. Already discussed that. Yep, we already discussed that. And okay. I have gone through all the information, all the documents, and all that good stuff. Anything anyone else would like to bring up? Yeah, no, expect there to be a poll coming out soon, today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know if I just missed the Unbound link before, but for whatever reason, I didn't see that document link previously.
Weird. It's also posted in announcements too.
Maybe that just escaped my notice.
Oh, good. You have it now. That's what matters. But in terms of what needs to be worked on for spheres at the moment, right now I've been working on the classes, so making the classes their own thing. You can't really copyright game mechanics, so I can still have things like Second Wind. I just have to have it slightly worded differently, and that's just to be safe. Technically, I could just take it word for word. I've seen 3.5 and Pathfinder have those exact things, especially if I go for the OGL. But right now, looking at this, I have some stuff to add for the skills. I have to add all the feats still. I need to add the classes I've not made updates for to the book.
Is it primarily refilling and rewording character stuff like classes, features, spells, and so on?
100%. Yes. It's just reflavoring. And then rewording. Yeah. That's all there is that, I'm really going through. And I've been adding some of my own homebrew to the other classes since, I've homebrewed the other, like, fighter and warlock and whatnot, so I'm like, might as well do the barbarian and bard and cleric, etc., etc. So they have my own stuff. Fortunately, before the Living World was a thing, I was working on my own game system, and I'm grabbing stuff from that to add to this.
Right, yeah, I'm down to help with that, just need it on a collaboration document. If there isn't one, I can just take a category and start renaming stuff like spells on a temporary document for you to transfer over.
Yeah, there is not one, so I would just do a category. I'm not going to be touching spells for a while, so if you want to do spells, feel free. But it is appreciated. Yeah. Anything else anyone would like to bring up? I feel like there's going to be a legacy posted, so I'm waiting.
What's up though, speaking on that, since you did mention you want to have some amount of spell crafting in spheres eventually, we should talk about that design point later.
Yeah. As I mentioned in the game system I was working on previously, I actually have a spellcrafting system in that one. I'm just going to be converting it to 5e rolls and plopping it in here. So I would just look at the converting the text for the spells that are already made, because the spell system I have will work with the spells that we've already made, or that are already in existence. So I just need to, convert it over. That's an older document.
Let me know when that's converted, would love to take a look.
Yeah, will do. All right. Anything else? Anything anyone would like to note to bring up? All right. Regarding whether we go with spheres or Unbound, there's obviously going to be the poll. I still heavily recommend people to check out Unbound just to try it out. Additionally, we're not going to be choosing our game system probably for a little bit, because regardless if we go Unbound or spheres, we're still going to be making or finishing administrative touches to the Living World. So once those are concluded, then we can officially choose our game system.
I would like to put forward just, obviously out of self-interest, I'll never deny that. Again, biased, but the poll for the DMs, I would actually request that it's delayed slightly, and let me actually run for some DMs. There's like one of a majority of the DM concerns I've read are people just don't know it, and people
Fair.
are always going to vote for. Spheres is described as it's just 5e bananas.
Yeah, that's fair.
At that point, it doesn't need to vote. People are going to vote for that.
Yeah, I'll hold off on the poll then. Give you like 2 weeks before I make the poll.
Yeah, I'll start running, recruit some other people to run some one shots and all that jazz, and
Yeah.
just there's again a lot of the issues I think are once they actually sit down and roll some dice, they realize are not as big of issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With that though, that is the meeting. I'm not gonna really have any updates besides, hey, like I've done some updates on the Spheres of Divinity, or I've done some additions to the World Anvil, for the next couple weeks. So I think our next meeting will occur unless someone wants to bring something up, in which case feel free to post in meeting times that you want something to happen at the meeting. Will not be till the poll is released and then filled. So we have 2 weeks for the poll to be released, and then a week for it to be filled in. So I'm not going to have anything to go over for until the 19th. That said, if someone does want a meeting, feel free to put it in meeting notes and be like, I want to discuss something.
Would recommend waiting for a week or two before doing the first DM poll, as I mentioned in the conclusion. We should clearly know what we need left for spheres before we put up the DM poll, and future polls for both community and DM, and this gives time for people to play test first.
Yeah.
We should definitely be doing multiple polls, possibly one every couple weeks, to gauge direction and preferences until we get a big majority.
We could have the poll sent out on the 5th and have it responded on the 12th. Apparently Super Sunday is the 12th, so that might have some conflicting for people showing up. But we could do that. Yeah, it would only be 1 week for people to test things out. I think 2 weeks is a better time for testing. I don't really mind either which way. In terms of being stressed out, I won't worry too much. From my knowledge, the DM team definitely favors spheres. The community favors Unbound, but also likes spheres. So either which way, they're happy. I just think people should try out Unbound to give it a chance, because it's daunting, but it's fun. And it's actually really easy to get into once you understand how to play, which a session or two will get you that knowledge. Ultimately, though, it is just a game, so I don't think it's something to stress about, but I know stressing is kind of hard to be like, oh, you shouldn't stress about this, and I'm just going to stress anyways. Yeah. Yeah. And if we do go for a system you don't want to run, I would still appreciate any other help you might provide. So if you want to stick with divinity stuff or whatnot, works for me. Or if you just want to hang out and whatnot. I also intend on eventually working on my not Walking Dead, Zombie Apocalypse Living World as well, which is going to be probably a modern 5e system, like a 5e modern. So, guns and stuff, but I already have gun rules in my 5e, so it might not really need to change too much. Yeah.
You should create a Zomboid server for that.
I should, yes, I should. But yeah, no, that's my big thing there. I want to see what you guys type before I do my concluding blah blah blah. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. But yeah, I will give Lexo some time to run some games, as well as some other people to run some games, so they can test things out. Once some time has passed, I'll put out the poll for the DMs to get a gauge of how they feel. I will give another poll as well for the player side, and they'll be separate. So community and DM poll. Just to get a gauge of how people are feeling with some playtesting having occurred. Um,
My priority for the one shots will be the DM team. Just because I feel like if some of the DM team starts feeling more comfortable, then the community might respond better to them maybe running the one shot
Yeah.
for the community members. It's people they know and have interacted with than me just coming in and being like, hey, play my game.
DM team is definitely priority, I would say, in testing because they're the ones who are the most trepidatious right now.
Indeed.
But it's a thing. We should be all Gouda. Indeed.
I think
Assuming you want Unbound feedback, where do you want it?
I know that there's a
We
feedback form that Lex has
yeah,
made.
we have a suggestion channel, and I also posted a new feedback form in announcements and I'll actually put that in the suggestions channel of, yeah, it's a full feedback. It's not perfect, but there's plenty of area where you can take paragraphs of
Mhm.
thoughts. If you have more feedback than that, you can reach out to me personally. I would love to talk anytime.
Mhm.
This
I think
is essentially my full-time job, so.
I think for the people that are going to be watching this, and this is a very important thing that has been a thing for years now, in the past 30 years for any tabletop thing. If a DM is also a player,
Yep.
so if they are not having fun, or they're not having a fun, then you're not going to have a fun game because they're just going through the motions of running that session and being done. I that that needs to be in the back of a lot of people's minds, that you need the DMs to run the games to get games. So if a DM does not like something, they're not going to have fun, and you're not going to have fun.
Exactly.
That like that is the key thing here that has to be brought up for people who are listening and for the community as a whole. While their opinion matters, the DM is the one that makes the decision.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's not to say the community opinion doesn't matter. It does, but the crux of the issue is still on the DMs that have to run it.
Yeah. We don't have our DM team. We don't have a server.
Right. So if it goes either way, and here's the biggest thing. I am in favor of learning new things, but you also have to realize the bottom line of the DM that runs it. Do they have time? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can they do this? It's all in the DM.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have time, they can't do it. But that being said, if you run a lot of tabletop RPGs, that helps you because now it teaches you how to deal with situations that may come up down the line in any other game outside of Cyberpunk and stuff like that, because that's a weird D6 system and stuff. It's helpful, but it's not helpful as just playing any other D20 system.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like the community is understanding of,
Yeah. Like it's still going to come down to the DMs, and people are just going to have to take what the DMs want to do.
Yeah.
I would also like to just say this. It's kind of touched on last week. I know Nerp and I keep talking about how we're working together on multiple things. I just wanted to be clear, maybe from my end. There's a lot of people here may have seen me around, but don't know me directly. I actually never expected this to even be a conversation. You could Nerp came to me and was like, "Hey, Unbound's actually winning so far," and I was completely surprised.
Mm-hmm.
There will be no hard feelings if Unbound doesn't continue. I mean, obviously not from Europe and
Yep.
not from me or my side. I've been around since a long time, and I do what I can to help out on Syrik, maybe not as directly anymore, but it's not a. What I do try to sell it because, I mean, at the end of this, my job, they show the positive aspects. There should be no pressure of you're going to upset someone if you make it on dollars. Not what I want.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. I just want that to be clear.
Yep, it's all good. Whatever works for us will end up being used. There's no pressure there. Any other things people would like to bring up? All right. Well, appreciate all your faces, all the help you've been providing, all the feedback, which is most important for this particular stage of things. And we should be back in a couple weeks to discuss poll results, as well as any future additions that might have occurred to Spheres or Unbound or what have you. And I will close things out here. Wow.